What's up, everybody? So it looks like nobody could show up tonight. So what I thought we would do is I'll just play the letters right from YouTube, and we'll do we'll pick up where we left off last week, and maybe if people could join us, they could come in later. We got up to letter five, page five of letter one. So this is the website. So I actually pulled up the website with the YouTube. So instead of me reading it by myself, I'm going to play it. And then if I feel like, I need to jump in at all, I will. But other than that, I'm just going to let it run tonight. I'm going to, try to get in contact with the other guys. I know they had some things come up and they couldn't join right away. So, so we're up to letter five. I actually have the video here. Let me take the letter down and throw this up. So right here, I got it on the spot, about 12 minutes, 51 seconds in, where we're up to exactly where we left off last week. I think I read page five, but it kind of got interrupted a little bit, and we were kind of getting tired at that point. So, so I'll just play it from here. Hopefully it comes through good. You have the website in the bottom if you want to follow along. Go in the comments if you want to ask any questions or you want me to jump in. I'll be watching the stream, but going solo right now, I really, I'm not going to just read the letters. So I figure why not just have this? I could show you guys how it sounds from this website that I keep putting up. And then has the PDF and the YouTube video. So you go up there. I'm going to make it there. And we're going to play it. So enjoy. So we're right where we left off on page 5.
So despite her anger, I laughed and thanked her and kissed her warmly. Gladly, I remained with her, knowing very well that underneath her anger, she was deeply anxious for me. She fed me well and made me good new clothes. I appreciated all she did toward improving my appearance, as I knew that to move freely between rich and poor, I must be acceptably clad in decent garments. At times there were food shortages in the home. Drawing upon the power of my father, I replenished them, saying nothing. Neither did she. I knew she wondered sadly whether to all my other bad habits I had now added that of thief. Then she caught me with a freshly baked loaf in my hands and knew that I had not been out of the house to buy it, and neither had the stove been in use that day. She said nothing, but gave me a long, pondering look. I could see her attitudes change at that moment. She was no longer sure of her ground. She was beginning to question her own attitudes toward me, and also the truth of my statements. What really happened to him out in the desert? How could he make a loaf of bread without fire, flour, and yeast? What does it mean? Is he the Messiah? Then my brother cut his hand. He was in much pain when it festered. He allowed me to put my hands on his wound and quietly pray. I could see that he felt the power flow into his hands because he looked at me strangely. The pain is gone, he said briefly. He was surly as he walked away, and I knew that while he was relieved to be free of pain, he did not like me for having been able to help him. I sensed his jealousy. My sister scalded her hand, and another brother often complained of bad headaches. I was able to cure them both. My brothers and sisters began to joke about my magic powers. They questioned what evil I might do to them if they angered me. The tension in the home deepened, and I felt sadness for my mother, who longed for peace in the house. But she saw changes in my behavior and was comforted. I was quieter, visibly controlled likely outbursts, reined in my energy, curbed impatience, no longer argued. I became more caring, listened to her womanly grumbles, helped her in the house by repairing broken furniture, and walked the hills to distant farms to find the fruits and vegetables she wanted. I came to love her tenderly and compassionately, as a mother should be loved. One day she ventured to ask me, "Do you still say that Jehovah is a myth?" Job said that if Jehovah were to withdraw his breath, all flesh would collapse together. That is the Jehovah I believe in and saw. No one has seen Jehovah, she said firmly. I saw that which has brought all things into being, I replied quietly. I call it the Father, Because it is perfect love, love more perfect than a mother's, I added, smiling at her. It works in, through, and for all its creation. It is the Father in me which has brought you the things you needed in the house and healed my brothers and sisters so swiftly. I could see she was beginning to understand a little of what I said. What of sin? She asked. There is no sin as we understand it. We are born to behave as we do. We have to find a way to overcome our human thoughts and feelings, for they separate us from the protection of the Father and bring us sickness and misery. When we have learned how to overcome the self, we will enter the kingdom of heaven. My mother turned away silently, obviously pondering what I had said to her, but no longer angry. I knew she was thinking about my statements and realized they would be turning her safe and well-known world upside down. Without her belief in a Jehovah threatening dire vengeance if mankind was unruly, she would feel lost and insecure. She would wonder how the world would ever manage if it was left entirely to men to control the evil doings of themselves and others. Even kings and governors were wicked in their actions. Without Jehovah to rule and punish sinners, where would it end? While regaining my strength, I studied the scriptures diligently to enable me to meet the Pharisees and the scribes with confidence. It was also imperative I should know what had been written of the Messiah, because I was convinced I was he of whom the prophets had spoken. I could indeed rescue, save people from misery, sickness, and poverty, even restore them to health and prosperity by showing them the truth concerning the kingdom of heaven and the reality of the Father. When I felt I was sufficiently prepared to go out and teach and heal, to please my mother, I agreed to go one Sabbath to the synagogue in Nazareth to speak to the congregation. As was customary, I stood up and was handed Isaiah to read. I chose the passage prophesying a Messiah would come, who would release the Jews from every type of bondage. The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he has anointed me to preach the good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim release to the captives and recovering of sight to the blind, to set at liberty those who are oppressed, to proclaim the acceptable year of the Lord. Then I sat down, saying, Today you have seen this prophecy fulfilled in me. There was shock and amazement on the men's faces, but I continued to speak, knowing that the Father would tell me what to say. The words came without hesitation. I spoke about my experience in the desert and related my vision of the baby growing into manhood, all the while, all unknowingly, wrapping himself around with mental thongs and chains, thus blinding and imprisoning himself in interior darkness and shutting himself off from God. I explained that in so doing they exposed themselves to oppression from conquerors, slavery, poverty, and disease. For God is light, I said, and light is the substance of all visible thing, and light is love, which makes all things for man to enjoy. All blessings of abundance and health were freely available to him who loved God with mind, heart, and soul, and lived strictly according to the laws of God. When I had finished, there was complete silence in the synagogue. I felt that the congregation had experienced something strange and powerful, and had been lifted to a higher plane of thought, and wanted nothing to disturb the transcendent tranquility of that moment. Then the whispering started amongst themselves. They were wondering who I was. Some were convinced that I was the person Jesus, whose family was known in the village, but others could not accept this since I had spoken as one having authority. Unfortunately, I felt my old reactions to these religious men returning. I knew they had despised me in the past, and so I expected rejection. I slipped back into my old challenging attitudes and thoroughly angered them. Through my own human reactions, I invited disaster, and disaster I almost got. The younger men, urged on by their elders, rushed at me and dragged me to the highest cliff top to hurl me to my death. But I prayed to my Father for deliverance. Suddenly, it seemed they were so stirred up, they hardly knew what they were doing, and turned on each other. I was able to slip from their midst and escape. It was strange. They seemed not to notice my going. Badly shaken by my experience, I managed to send a message to my mother, saying I was leaving Nazareth immediately and going down to Capernaum, a gracious town by the Sea of Galilee. At first I thought to join old acquaintances, but I felt intuitively this was not the right thing to do. So all the way down and on entering the town, I prayed for the Father's direction and help in finding accommodation. I had no money and would not beg. As I walked the street, a woman of middle years came towards me, heavily laden with baskets on her arms. Her countenance was sorrowful. It seemed she had been crying. On impulse, I stopped her and asked where I might find accommodation. She said briefly that she would normally offer me a bed, but she had a very sick son at home. She added that she had been to buy provisions to feed the comforters, who had already gathered to mourn when her son died. My heart grieved for her, but also rejoiced. Straightway I had been led to someone I could help. I expressed my sympathy and offered to carry her baskets to her house. She looked at me for a moment, wondering who I might be, but was apparently satisfied by my appearance and demeanor. On the way, I said I could probably help her son. "Are you a doctor?" she asked. I replied that I had received no medical training, but nonetheless I could help him. On reaching her house, large and well built of stone, indicating social standing and prosperity, she took me to her husband, saying, "This man says he can help our son." He nodded morosely, but said nothing. The woman, Miriam, drew me away, saying he was distressed and very angry. "The boy is our only son amongst many daughters, and he is blaming God for giving the child the sickness." Miriam wept. "If he speaks like this against God, what other troubles will be heaped upon us, I wonder?" "Take comfort," I said. "Shortly your son will be well again." She looked doubtful, but led me to the room in which the boy lay. It was hot and stifling, and filled with gloomy, talkative well-wishers. I asked the mother to clear the room, but the visitors were resistant. They wanted to see what would be done, and only left reluctantly when Miriam called her husband to speak to them. I could hear them arguing with the father in the next room. What did he think this man could do if the doctor had been unable to help the boy? The father came into the room to see for himself. His son was deathly pale and had a high fever. The mother explained he could not keep his food down and had loose bowels. He had been like that for several days and had lost so much weight the doctor had said nothing more could be done for him. He would probably die. I placed my hands on the boy's head and prayed, knowing and silently giving heartfelt thanks that the father life would flow down through my hands and into his body. Thus the healing work would be accomplished. I felt extreme heat and a tingling vibration in my hands, and the power pouring into his frail body. I was overcome with joyous thanksgiving. How great, how wonderful was the father life when released to do its natural work of healing. His father and mother, looking anxious, wondering what would happen next, held each other's hands and watched intently. As they saw their son's color gradually change from white to a more healthy glow, they exclaimed in astonishment and delight. After some time, the boy looked up at me and said brightly, "Thank you. I am well now. I am hungry and want something to eat." His mother laughed with happiness and held him close, but also looked apprehensive. "I cannot give you food, my son. The doctor will be angry." She had been warned to starve him of all but water. I smiled and said, "He is cured. You can give him bread and wine, and he will keep it down."
All right, so I just wanted to stop there and just kind of zoom in on that part there. Let me see if I could. All right. So we did all page 5. And this. This is when he escaped. Now, right here, I just wanted to point out, he said, I placed my hands on the boy's head and prayed, knowing and silently giving heartfelt thanks that the Father life would flow down through my hands and into his body. Thus, the healing work would be accomplished. So, this is before the healing took place. He expected and knew it was going to happen. It reminded me of that story of he always taught that he was so impressed with the Roman soldiers' faith that he said, I know if you say it, my servant will be healed, and you don't even have to come to my house. And he was so impressed with his faith. This is kind of a very similar situation where he just put his hands on the boy and he already knew that it was going to happen. And he was already giving thanks before it even happened. So that's like just showing the kind of faith that he had, which I've noticed that that's a pretty common theme is you have to kind of change your expectations about your prayers, that they will happen. And that that not that you hope they will happen, that they do happen. So I thought that was really important. Knowing and silently giving heartfelt thanks that the Father life would flow down through my hands and into his body. Yeah, and that's where we're at. I'll just keep it going. I wanted to highlight that part. I'm trying to see if there's anything else from the other pages. He's deciding not to beg, but he has no money. So he's just going to go around and see who will accept him in. And then he's starting to find out that he could kind of do healing for accommodations. And then that gives him an opening to preach. So that seems to be where that came. He left his mother. Now this part, when he was in there with the Jewish temple, he quoted Isaiah, basically saying that he is the Messiah. And he said, he quoted that the Messiah would release the Jews from every type of bondage. Quote, the Spirit of the Lord is upon me because he has anointed me to preach the good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim release to the captives and recovering sight to the blind, to set at liberty those who are oppressed, to proclaim the acceptable year of the Lord. And then I sat down saying, today you have seen this prophecy fulfilled in me. And then there was shock and amazement. And then he talked about his experience in the desert and related his vision of the baby growing into manhood, all the while unknowingly wrapping himself around with mental thongs and chains, thus blinding and imprisoning himself in interior darkness and shutting himself off from God. So, we all have our moments of weakness. I just had one. I just got aggravated and yelled at somebody out of my car. It was terrible. I've been doing so good, but we're all going to have these human moments. Like I said, I lose it too. It's hard, but we just have to repent, to turn back to the Father and make sure that we don't shut ourselves off from God, to remove those barriers that we put up every time that we focus on ourselves instead of focusing on our relationship with God. I explained that in so doing, they expose themselves to oppression. So again, taking responsibility for all the terrible things that are happening to us and not just, becoming the victim mentality, just kind of, I'm not behaving properly. And that's inviting bad things to happen to me. For God is light. And I said, light is the substance of all visible things, and light is love, which makes all things for a man to enjoy. All blessings of abundance and health were freely available to him who loved God with mind, heart, and soul and lived strictly according to the laws of God. So that was a great section. I'm going to go back to right after the healing. So he's going to stick around with this gentleman, the father. His name is Zedekiah, which I thought was interesting. I know it almost has Melchizedek it's like part of that, but it's Zedekiah. And there's a lot of teaching that takes place here. And we'll continue with the video.
His father, Zedekiah, was all amazed joy and gratitude. After embracing his beloved son, he turned to me and wrung my hands warmly. He kept patting my shoulder but shaking shaking his head, unable to speak for the tears which were running down his cheeks. When he had largely recovered his composure, he went through to the living room and said to the people there, "My son, almost dead, has been returned to fullness of life again." His words were met with a great clamor of jubilation, excitement, disbelief, questioning, laughter, and congratulations. The boy's mother stood there, her face wreathed in smiles. After that, there was no question of needing accommodation. When Zedekiah told the astonished comforters that the boy was cured, and the youth himself appeared smiling at the door, and asked, yet again, for food, the well-wishers one and all gathered around me and invited me to their homes. However, I preferred to remain with the boy's father, who now said he had many questions to ask me. He hoped I could answer them. After food and wine were placed on the table and everyone was invited to eat their fill, Zedekiah sat down and asked his first question. He said, "You have done something no priest or doctor could do. Healing only comes of God. Although you are a stranger, I perceive you must come from God." "Yes," I said, and the people murmured wonderingly. "This illness which has come upon my son, was this a punishment for something I have done wrong in the past? And how could I commit grievous a sin that God should want to take my only son from me?" Many of the people nodded when they heard these words. "You have asked the question I most want to answer, Zedekiah. God gives us life and being. He would not snatch these away as a man would snatch some treasure from another man because he is angry with him. This is the way that mankind behaves, not God. And God is not placed on a throne in some part of the sky, like human kings sit on thrones and govern their people. This is the human way and a human belief, not truth. The way of God is far beyond anything the human mind can devise or dream about. I alone have seen that which has brought us into being, and I know that it is not the kind of God taught by the rabbis. I saw that it is perfect love, and for this reason I would rather speak of the Father, for I have seen that it works within every living thing, keeping them in a good state of health, even as a human father works to keep his children well fed, clothed, and protected within the shelter of a home. I have seen it within everything in the world. How can that be? A man asked doubtfully. It is not possible for an individual being of any kind to be everywhere at once, but the air is everywhere, although we cannot see it. Nonetheless, we know and do not doubt it is very real and very important to our existence. If there were no air and we could not breathe it, we would die. The movement of air, which we call wind, we cannot see, but we can see it agitate the leaves and drive the clouds across the sky. So we know the air is around and above us and is strong. And now I would ask you, what is the most real and valuable part of a man? His body or his mind? Some answered it was the body. Otherwise he would have no place on earth, could not work, could not be seen, would not be known. Others said they thought that his mind was more important than his body. And I answered, his mind is the most important part of him, since without his mind he could not power his body. He would not eat, drink, sleep, move, plan, or live. Yet we cannot see mind. We can only know we have a mind because of the thoughts it produces and because the thoughts fashion some kind of action in our lives. We believe mind works through the brain. Yes, it does. For how could brain born of flesh produce thoughts, feelings, ideas, plans? And now it should be clear to you that this is how the Father is present within all things. It is the directing mind behind the human mind, working its great works within every living thing. We know this is so, for we see the marvels it brings about. We see the growth of children. We see the food they eat miraculously changed into another substance which nourishes and makes them grow. How this happens? we do not begin to know or even imagine. Even if we did know, we would still not know what set such an important life process to work in living bodies of every species. See how wonderfully the bodies of each species is fashioned and created purposefully, expressly to transform the kind of food they eat into nourishment to grow bone, blood, and flesh. Now you show us these things, we can see they are truly marvelous, a young man exclaimed. They are, they are. We see the young bodies going through their various stages of development, and we see their minds keeping pace with their physical development until the youths and maidens begin to long to find a spouse and to become parents themselves. Then the great work of conception is accomplished, and the growth of seed within the womb continues until it comes forth as a full-term child. Think, who determines all this steady, orderly growth within the woman? From whence comes the plans which govern the right development of head, body, and limbs, and are unvarying from one woman to another, and from one species to another? Who decides the exact moment when birth shall begin, the physical means by which the child shall be brought forth from the womb, the provision of milk for the child? Think, is this the mother? No, it is not the mother. She is but witness of all that takes place in her from the moment her husband has been to her and planted his seed to join with hers. Does God do all these things from afar? Do his thoughts reach out to each man and woman and decide when these things shall take place? No. All this work is accomplished by the creative mind power, the intelligently loving life within every living thing. We see the parents' love of their young, be they bird, animal, and man. Where does this love come from? It is drawn from the creative mind power, perfect love of the Father within us. It is because the Father does the work within the plants, the trees, the birds, animals, and man himself that we are here today, living, breathing, eating, sleeping, having children, growing old, and then dying to pass on to some more happy place. All of this is the work of the Father active within us. How can you possibly deny the truth of all I have said tonight? Today you saw a dying youth brought back to fullness of life again within a short time. Was it I who healed him? Not at all. Of myself I can do nothing. It was the life that is the Father active within all things which came in full force to repair an ailing body and bring it back to full health again, because I believed it would and did not doubt. There were sighs of satisfaction in the room. New light, new interest, even new gentleness showed in their faces. Why then does man suffer so grievously? Miriam asked. Because when man is begotten, when life takes on form within the seed, it takes on the humanhood which separates it from every other individual in the world, to make it single, a lone figure, joined to none other, solitary, private, its own person. It becomes subject to, is controlled by two mightily strong impulses in his earthly nature, to hold fast to all things he greatly desires, and to reject and push away all that he does not want. These two most basic impulses in man underlie every single thing he does throughout his life and are entirely responsible for the trouble man brings upon himself. Although the Father is active within man, it has nothing of humanhood in it. Therefore,
Oh, wow. Okay. So I actually have the printout in front of me. I want to put that up. So we're at page 10. So we got all the way to page 10. He reads a lot faster than we do. So he's talking about the twin impulses again, which I remember we spoke about that, I think last week, I believe. That was attract and repulse. No, yeah, desire and repulse, and bonding and rejection. Yeah, bonding, rejection, desires, repulsions. That's the twin impulses. So this says that, therefore, Father holds nothing, rejects nothing, condemns nothing, does not even see wrongdoing. So that means that the Father is not subject to twin impulses like us. That's interesting. Just wanted to highlight that. He also said that he did not do the healing of that child. And that's something that we should keep in mind. He allowed the Father to flow through him to heal. He himself says, today you saw a dying youth brought back to fullness of life again within a short time. Was it I who healed him? Not at all. Of myself I can do nothing. It was the life that is the Father, active within all things, which came into full force to repair an ailing body, to bring it back to full health again, because I believed it would and did not doubt. So again, with his faith. And it's not him, it's the force working through him. So that's again where you're not letting your ego like, oh, I healed all these people or I did all these things. It's not about you. It's about a greater power working through you. And then the question was asked, why does man suffer so grievously from the mother? And then he just once again brought on the fact that as soon as a human being is born, it has to separate itself from every other individual in the world to make it unique. So that's something that it's almost like it's a survival instinct at first, but it's something that if we maintain that survival mode into adulthood, it actually will take us further apart from the Father. And then it also says that Father does not reject. So there is no twin impulses in him. He holds nothing, rejects nothing. So that's what he's getting into now. I'm trying to see if there's anything else I want to highlight. So again, it wasn't him. It was God working through him. That it is perfect love. And Zechariah was trying to see why would this happen? This illness which had come upon my son was a punishment for something I have done wrong in the past. How could I commit so grievous a sin that God would want to take my only son from me? Many people nodded when they heard these words. You have asked the question I most want to answer, Zechariah. God gives us life and being. He would not snatch these away as a man would snatch some treasure from another man because he is angry with him. This is the way that mankind behaves, not God. And God is not placed on a throne in some part of the sky like human beings sit on thrones that govern people. This is the human way and the human belief, not truth. The way of God is far beyond anything the human mind can devise or dream about. I alone have seen that which brought us into being, and I know that it is not the kind of God taught by the rabbis. I saw that it is perfect love. And then he goes on to speak about the good qualities of God. So he doesn't really focus on that, the punishment part of it, because it's not the punishment. According to this teaching, whatever punishments we receive is brought on by our own way of thinking, which is really more answering what Miriam said and saying that it's actually the exception and the repulsion of things for our individuality and our self-centeredness that make the bad things happen. So we'll continue. I'm going to back up a little bit just to go back to when Miriam asked the question, because I think it's important to read all that together. And we're on page 10 for those following along. Let's take that back in.
Or the Father upon himself, although to make it single, alone figure would and did not. Of myself I can do nothing. It was the life that is the Father active within all things, which came in full force to repair an ailing body and bring it back to full health again, because I believed it would and did not doubt. There were sighs of satisfaction in the room, new light, new interest, even new gentleness showed in their faces. Why then does man suffer so grievously? Miriam asked. Because when man is begotten, when life takes on form within the seed, it takes on the humanhood which separates it from every other individual in the world. To make it single, a lone figure, joined to none other, solitary, private, its own person, it becomes subject to, is controlled by two mightily strong impulses in his earthly nature, to hold fast to all things he greatly desires, and to reject and push away all that he does not want. These two most basic impulses in man underlie every single thing he does throughout his life and are entirely responsible for the trouble man brings upon himself. Although the Father is active within man, it has nothing of humanhood in it. Therefore, the Father holds nothing, rejects nothing, condemns nothing, does not even see wrongdoing. All that man does, which man calls sin, is only of this world, and is only punished within this world. For it is a law of earthly existence, as you know, that whatever you sow, you will reap as a like harvest. Because he draws life and mind from the Father, man himself is creative in thought, words, and deeds. Whatever he thinks, says, does, and believes returns to him in like form some time later. There is no punishment from the Father. Whatever ills come to mankind is of their own making entirely. People murmured that this was a new teaching altogether, and yet it made greater sense than all that they had been taught before. Several voices urged me to tell them more. I tell you, in me you have seen the life active as healing. Follow me and you will hear of the path you must walk to find happiness. In my words will you find the truth of existence never yet revealed by any other man. It has been said of the Messiah, he will utter secrets hidden from the beginning of creation. I tell you truly, these secrets you will hear from me. If you listen carefully and grasp their meaning, and practice their truth and hold fast to their laws, you will be made new and will enter into the kingdom of heaven. After I had spoken, the people were quiet for a moment, and then there was a clamor of excited talk. But Zedekiah stood up and said it was time for the household to settle down. His boy needed sleep, and his wife and daughters, too, were weary after all their weeping. It was arranged that the next morning I should go down to the harbor, and sick people would be brought to me. Thus I was able to launch my mission, and everything was speedily arranged for me in the best possible way. It seemed that if I did not heal, there would be no interest in and no acceptance of all I had to tell them. Healing demonstrated the truth of what I wanted to teach, and my teachings would explain the reasons why I was able to bring them healing from the Father. When I woke the next morning, I felt joyously alive with the expectation of wondrous things to come. After I had broken my fast, I set out with Zedekiah toward the town harbor, my heart aglow with love for everyone I passed. I greeted them warmly, telling them I had good news for those who wanted to hear it. When I reached the jetty, I found men, women, and children seated on the ground, awaiting my arrival. Some held out their hands to me imploringly. These looked very ill, some were crippled, many were covered in sores. My heart still ached for their pitiful state, but now I could also rejoice because I knew it was not the Father's will that they should be like this. Quite the contrary. The Father was itself all healing, all health, all fitness. I had proved this the night before and in my home. I exulted that I would be able to demonstrate this wonderful truth to the crowds now gathering around me. One sad old face caught my attention. She was wrinkled and thin and crooked. I went to her, and kneeling beside her, I placed my hands on her head and immediately felt the flow of Father power through my hands, vibrating through her head until her whole body shook with the life force, energizing her limbs. People watching this were astonished and wondered what I might be doing to her, but others quieted their objection. Gradually, her limbs began to unbend, lengthen, straighten, Her face became alive with the joy of returning strength. I helped her to stand up. Then she stood proudly by herself. She was so overcome with happiness she began to weep, then laughed and danced, calling out to people. "Praise God," she said, "praise God." And others standing there took up the refrain. They were all deeply moved by what they had seen. The crush of people pressing in against my person was so great, Zedekiah had offered to control them. In orderly fashion, assisted by other eager onlookers, he marshaled the sick toward me that I might attend to them, according to their deepest need. At last, feeling tired, my host invited me back to his house to dine. He sent away those whom I had not been able to heal for lack of time. He assured them I would return the following day. It was a festive evening, so much to talk about, so much to celebrate, so much to teach, so much to learn. All of it certainly good news, the people agreed. I knew that by many I was accepted as speaking truly of what I had seen in the desert. And so it continued for many days. People came to see me from far and wide. Zedekiah and others of his friends helped me to control the crowds to enable me to heal and teach. The people listened gladly. They were talking amongst themselves about the Father and were eager to learn more about the thongs and chains which bound people in misery. The crush became so great I soon realized I would have to find my own helpers on whom I could rely to assist me. It was time for Zedekiah to return to conduct his leather business, which he had been neglecting. I went away to the hills to pray about choosing disciples. When the conviction came to me that I would be guided as to whom to choose, I returned to Capernaum. I felt a strong inclination to go down to the waterfront, to speak to some men I had seen listening intently to my teachings. Whether they would leave their fishing nets to join me remained to be seen, but when I called them, Simon, Andrew, James, and John, they came immediately, happy to help in my work of healing and teaching. Others also joined me as I began my work amongst the people. I left my host Zedekiah's house with his warm assurances that I could return at any time. Thus it was that I commenced my mission as teacher and healer, wandering wherever needed through towns and villages. Before setting out, I gathered together the young men who had consented and were eager to help me. They would be listening to my teachings and would be mystified by much of what I wanted to say. It was vital I should first explain the background to all that had been revealed to me in the desert. I told them that despite my previously lazy way of life, I had always had a profound compassion for people. It was my compassion that made me turn from the God taught by the rabbis. When I spoke of my total rejection of a punishing Jehovah, I could see the doubt and shock in their faces. At considerable length I explained that I questioned how it was possible to speak of a good God when there was so much suffering endured by innocent children. As I spoke, I saw their faces gradually relax. I continued to voice my previous doubts and anger until I saw their expressions change into those of acceptance and then full agreement. I discovered I had put to them their own doubts and questions, which previously they had never had the courage to put into words. As we spoke together, I could sense their relief that they were no longer alone in their secret resistance to the rabbi's teachings. I told them there came a time when I began to realize ever more clearly that I was wasting my life. I wanted to change and felt very strongly I should go to John the Baptist as a starting point, as it were, to the commencement of a new way of living. I described what happened during the baptism and my 6 weeks in the desert. I explained that all my previous thoughts and beliefs, attitudes, arrogance, rebelliousness, were gradually cleansed from my consciousness while I was going through the deep revelations and visions showing me the reality that I now call the Father. I explained the nature of the Father and that this divine nature also constituted the divine will. I told them that it was man himself who, through wrong thinking and wrong behavior, shut himself off from the Father within him, and man alone, by first repenting and then by mental emotional cleansing, could find his own way back to full contact with the Father. When this was accomplished, the full nature of the Father would be released into the person's mind, heart, body, soul, and his life environment and experiences. As this happened, such a person would enter into the kingdom of heaven, ruled by the Father, and also the kingdom of heaven would be established within the consciousness of the person. He would then have attained the purpose behind his existence. As I spoke to my disciples, I saw their reactions reflected in their faces. All doubt had gone. There was now a light of dawning comprehension and joy. These young men became enthusiastic believers and exclaimed, "This is indeed good news." However, after their first acceptance of all I said, there were times when they wondered whether all I said could be true. I understood this. To be prepared to rid themselves of the image of Jehovah, so deeply imprinted in their minds, took a great deal of courage. There were times when they spoke amongst themselves and questioned, who was this man claiming such marvels? Supposing they came along with me and it turned out that I was really a messenger from Satan, what then? They would be severely punished by Jehovah. They had much to lose, their standing in society as sober, hard-working young men, their reputation as tradesmen and artisans, their loss of income, and biggest obstacle of all, the probable anger and rejection by their families. What would they receive in return? I told them I could not promise them any earthly reward for their help in spreading the gospel of good news. I had no doubt at all that wherever we went we would be given food and shelter and would be well received by the people. I could only promise them the truth that the Father knew their needs and would fulfill them and keep them healthy. I could also promise them that as they turned to the Father and trusted the Father every step of the way, they would be happy in a way they had never been happy before. They would experience the kingdom of heaven themselves to the extent that they set aside the demands of self and served other people. They would witness the healings, and these would increase their faith and give them the courage to endure any discomforts of the journey. And this was how we came to start on our mission of spreading the good news of the gospel of the kingdom. I sent these young men ahead of me into the town we were to visit. As they entered it, they told the people to gather together to hear the good news of the kingdom of heaven. These people were astonished and wanted to know more, but the disciples urged them to fetch their friends and neighbors, and they would be told all about it when Jesus arrived. There would be healing of their sick people. Excitedly, many ran to help spread the good news, and soon they were gathered together in a huge crowd. I, who had so deeply and passionately rebelled against the long-faced religious homilies threatening violence, punishment, and damnation to sinners, now walked with joy to meet these crowds. I had my good news to share with them to brighten their day, and healing of ailments and afflictions to gladden their lives. Whereas before, I moved amongst people selfishly and empty-handed, taking their goodwill and sometimes their handouts with little gratitude, I came now with an abundance of life-giving possibilities for everyone who is prepared to listen to my words and take action to improve his quality of life. I want you, who are reading these pages, to fully understand my position at that time, my state of consciousness after my illumination in the desert, and the persona I presented to my countrymen as Jesus. There have been so many conjectures that I am about to give you the truth. I was born to have, when mature, a fine physique, strong aquiline features, a remarkable intellect, and a love of mimicry and laughter. But like so many of you today, I took no care of my earthly talents. At the time of going into the desert, my face and manners were what you might call downgraded from what they should have been. While I had begun to examine and rebel against what I had become, my intellect had also suffered from misuse, constantly engaged in arguments and dissensions over religion, and indulging in flippant speech. I made people laugh. I was liked by the men and women I mixed with, but certainly not respected. Hence the astonishment of those who had known me when I spoke to them in the synagogue in Nazareth. While my mother nursed me back to good health, I made powerful use of the knowledge and enlightenment given me in the desert. This restored me to the man I was meant to be. When I started my mission, I was fully aware that I was the only one with supreme knowledge of the secrets of creation and existence itself. Therefore, I could say with perfect confidence, "No one has seen the Father but me." I knew that all that man believed in so wholeheartedly was false, not real. I knew that I had been specially fashioned and designed by the Father for this mission. I had been blessed abundantly with the physical energy, vitality of speech, and the ability to devise meaningful parables to enable me to pass on the message successfully and in a form that would never be forgotten. Besides which, I understood my fellow men so well from long association with them that I knew their fondest hopes, their most desperate fears. I knew what made them laugh and prompted them to mockery and derision of the rich and pompous. And I knew, also, how deeply so many, young and old, suffered silently and bravely. I knew and experienced deep compassion for the populace which lived in fear of, or endured, the verbal whiplash of Pharisees and bowed down to the tax laws of the Romans. I knew how their proud Jewish spirit was bruised by the conquering Gentiles, whom they were forced to honor with their lips and hand and knee salutations, yet whom they despised behind closed doors. I knew and fully understood the lives and thinking of the populace. I had previously thought their thoughts, felt their resentments, endured their kind of anxieties in time of lack, felt powerless in the grip of the Roman governance. I now knew that none of this suffering was really necessary. Knowing as I did the reality of existence, the reality of universal God, I could clearly perceive the foolishness of the Jews in authority who were imposing a burdensome way of life upon the populace, which was wholly erroneous and in direct contradiction of the truth of being. The situation made me deeply angry. Therefore, I knew I had been perfectly fashioned and honed to become a purified instrument of divine action in Palestine, driven by my passion for truth and driven by my compassion for my fellow human beings. Hence, I called myself Son of Man, because I knew exactly what mankind was up against in their daily lives. Furthermore, I had perfect confidence I could achieve my objectives in bringing the truth to the people and thus be instrumental in changing the quality of their lives. For that reason, although I knew right at the outset of my mission that there would be a penalty to pay for all I proposed to do, turn the known Jewish world upside down and inside out, I was prepared to face up to it and go through it, could not evade it, because I loved people with Father love flowing through my heart and being. For Father love is the essence of giving, giving itself into visible being and visible existence, and growing, protecting, nourishing, healing, and fulfilling all the needs of all creation made visible. I knew I was the Father's gift of salvation to the people, to the world, not as they supposed and taught down the centuries, salvation from punishment meted out by an angry God to sinners, but to save people from the daily repetition of the same mistakes in wrong thinking which created their misfortunes, poverty, sickness, and misery. Because I loved the human race so deeply, I was prepared to teach and heal in defiance of the Jewish priests. I was prepared to die on the cross for what I had truly seen in the desert, knew with all of my heart, and wanted to share to the last drop of my ability to do so. This is the truth behind my crucifixion, and all the rest you've heard is man-made conjecture arising out of the Jewish practice of burnt offerings in the temple. I was a gift from the Father to mankind to help them surmount their ignorance of the laws of existence and find the true path of life, leading to the joy, abundance, and perfect wholeness of the kingdom of heaven.
All right. So, yeah, that was a lot of. We're up to page 15. Let me just get this up here. We covered a lot there. So this we last time we was at page 10. I'm just gonna go through like some of the bold stuff. There's a lot of it, so at least highlight some of it. See page 12. Let me get the link off of there so we could see. There we go. All right. So just make sure I got this here. It says here. The reality I now call the Father. I explained the nature of the Father, that this divine nature also constituted the divine will. So a lot of different words for God here. Again, to expand our mind from like the normal, just saying God, we have divine will, divine nature. I told them that it was man himself who, through wrong thinking and wrong behavior, shut himself off from the Father within him. And man alone, by first repenting and then by mental emotional cleansing, could find his own way back to full contact with the Father. When this was accomplished, the full nature of the Father would be released into the person's mind, heart, body, soul, and his life environment and experiences. As this happened, such a person would enter into the kingdom of heaven ruled by the Father. Also, the kingdom of heaven would be established within the consciousness of the person, and he would have attained the purpose behind his existence. So the kingdom of heaven would actually be ongoing inside of you, and you would, in your consciousness, basically. So all we have to do is repent and then mental emotional cleansing. And he did teach us the prayer. We're gonna close out with that. I haven't done that on the show yet. I'm gonna do it in Aramaic, the Lord's Prayer. And I think we're probably gonna stop here. We've been going for an hour. We did cover a lot of pages. So let's go to the next page. Let's see the bold part here. Oh, wait, I got some noise going on here. Let me just make sure. All right, I'm going to read this. I could only promise them the truth that the Father knew their needs and would fulfill them and keep them healthy. I could also promise them that as they turned to the Father and trusted the Father every step of the way, they would be happy in a way they had never been happy before. They would experience the kingdom of heaven themselves to the extent they set aside the demands of self and served other people. They would witness the healings, and these would increase their faith and give them courage to endure any discomforts of the journey. And this was how we came to start on our mission of spreading the good news of the gospel of the kingdom. And this is when he chose his disciples. This is what they sent them out with. That to set aside the demands of the self and served other people, which was the main goal of it, and that the healings would further strengthen their faith. I sent these young men ahead of me into the town where we were to visit. As they entered it, they told people to gather together to hear the good news of the kingdom of heaven. The people were astonished and wanted to know more but the disciples urged them to fetch their friends and neighbors, and they would be told all about it when Jesus arrived. And there would be healing of their sick people. Excitedly, many ran to help spread the good news, and soon they were gathered together in a huge crowd. So they would get them together, and then Jesus would, in the beginning, he would disperse the information and the healing, which made them actually want to pay attention to him. As long as he healed them, they were paying attention. I, who had so deeply and passionately rebelled against the long-faced religious homilies threatening violence, punishments, and damnations to sinners, now walked with joy to meet these crowds. I had my good news to share with them to brighten their day, and healing all ailments and afflictions to gladden their lives. So that's page 13. 14, there's not much. He goes back basically on how he was before, and kind of went through the whole story of him getting up to that. Now, page 15, where we left off, is a lot of bold there. We'll read that real quick. So I knew I was the Father's gift of salvation to the people, to the world, not as they supposed and taught down the centuries, salvation from the punishment meted out by an angry God to sinners, but to save people from the daily repetition of the same mistakes and wrong thinking which created their misfortunes, poverty, sickness, and misery. Because I loved the human race so deeply, I was prepared to teach and heal in defiance of the Jewish priests. I was prepared to die on the cross for what I had truly seen in the desert, knew with all my heart, and wanted to share to the last drop of my ability to do so. This is the truth behind my crucifixion, and all the rest you've heard is man-made conjecture arising out of the Jewish practice of burnt offerings in the temple. I was a gift from the Father to mankind to help them surmount their ignorance of the laws of existence and find the true path of life leading to the joy, abundance, and perfect wholeness of the kingdom of heaven. So that's as far as we'll get tonight. That's page 15. Go back here. I'm going to lead us out with the Father's Prayer, the Lord's Prayer. So we'll do it in English first. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Deliver us from evil, O Heavenly Father, for thine is the power and the glory, now and forever and ever. Amen. And then in Aramaic, Abum Dibwa Shmaya, Neth Kadesh Shimak, Tai Tai Malkuthak, Newe Sebionak, Aikana, Dibwa Shmaya, Afbarha, Hablan Lakma, Disun Kanan Yomana, Washboklan Kobain, Waktahain, Aikana, Daf Kanan Shibwak an Lekai Yabain, Wele Talan Lenes Yuna, Ella Patsan Min Bisha, Mitol Dilaki Malkutha, Wahala, Watesh Bukta, Le Alam Almin Almain. These are some of the other translations of that. And I think I have, let's see if I got something here. I haven't looked at this book in a while. These were the laws that we did the other day. I think I wrote them down here. I was shown that divine creative power always worked according to certain fundamental exact principles of construction. I was shown that just as men have clear characteristics and a well-defined nature in their self-presentation to the world at large, so did the creative power possess a clearly defined nature, distinct characteristics which could be clearly recognized in the manner that all living things, plants, animals, birds, men, were constructed and maintained. I saw that these principles and characteristics clearly observable in the processes of creation were set in variable laws governing all existence. These laws are so much part of life that they are never questioned. They are undeviating and consistent, but there would be no such laws if there were no creative intelligent power manifesting itself through the universe. These principles of creation, the characteristics of the creative power itself, are as follows. And I got them here. One is nature of the creative power is growth. And then the nature of the creative power is nourishment. And then healing, protection, fulfillment of need, and survival, and loving, intelligent, creative power, which in being is work. And then law and order, I believe, is the last one, and rhythm. So like we were seeing today with where he was going through, I mean, healing was a big part of it. He started with the healing. It seemed there was a lot of sick people at the time, so that was the way he got people's attention. But all these other practices and everything like that, and I think I'll stop there. So hopefully we'll get Tuesday night. We'll get Thursday night and Sunday going again. If not, we'll see you guys next week, and we'll see if I could go out to a song here. Again, sorry about trying to get this all working. I'm going to go out to All Is Mine. I just put out a bunch of songs on Mikey V Music. This is one of them. And go out to this.
Consciousness, all is mine. It's not about painting the dark with pretty lies, not forcing the stars to bend beneath your eyes. Divine thought is quiet, it's the deepest kind of peace. Alignment with the order that was always meant to be. When your mind is scattered, lost in chaos, torn apart, the universe just echoes back, the mirror of your heart. No punishment, no judgment, just the signal that you send. Every sustained vibration calls its match around the bend. Every thought you cradle, every story that you hold becomes a frequency, a current made of gold. All is mine, stay alive. Every assumption will shape the life you find. All is mine, ignorance cannot remain. Expectation sings and the world will rearrange. Perception, that's the rhythm. Behavior sings a song. Coherence, awareness, expect it won't be long. Your inner world aligns. Seek, you will find. All is mine. You can silence doubt with desires in the night. The inner voice wins until the old self loses sight. When the signal changes, reflection changes course. How can the echo argue with its source? No repression, no resistance, self-doubt don't run the show. The old critic fades as higher awareness starts to glow. I'm not your mind, the strongest force you'll ever know. It is expectation, the chain begins here. What tone are you sending? What will it hear? The universe is listening. It only speaks in mirrors. Expectation shapes perception. Perception, it's open. Behavior shapes the outcome. This chain is unbroken. All is mine. Let your light shine. Let coherence rise and leave the critic behind. All is mine. Sacred, deep, divine. When your inner world aligns, the outer world will shine. All is mine. Salvation shapes the life you find. Every time, all is mine. All is mine. Let light shine. Let your thoughts align. All is mine. All is mine.
I thank you, O Lord, because I love you. O highest one, do not abandon me, for you are my hope. Your grace I have received freely and live on it. My persecutors will come, but let them not see me. Let a cloud of darkness fall on their eyes and thick gloom darken them. Let light be gone and I be invisible, so they will not come to seize me. Let their counsel be thick darkness, and their cunning turn on their own heads, for their counsel is a sham. The Lord is my hope, I will not fear. He is a garland on my head. I will not move into sorrows. Should everything tremble, I will stand firm. If all visible things perish, I will not die, for the Lord is with me, and I am with him. Thou hast put thy name upon me, and thy grace has covered me. Thou hast clothed me with thy light, and I have become a son of thy light. The darkness fled before thy face, and ignorance vanished at thy presence. I became like a land that blossoms, and my heart rejoiced in thy salvation. O Lord, thou art my deliverer, my hope, my strength. The Lord is my hope, I will not fear. Should everything tremble, I will stand firm. If all visible things perish, I will not die, for the Lord is with me, and I am with him. I praise thee, O Lord, because I love thee. O Most High, forsake me not. Thou art my hope and my deliverer. Glory and majesty to thy name. Thou hast clothed me with light and grace. The Lord is my salvation forever. Oh, my Father, my deliverer, my hope forever.